Hi, this is Mrs. Vandemark, and I was thinking maybe it was time for another bedtime story. So I picked another book out to read to you guys. This is called Ruby the Copycat by Peggy Rathman, and I love this story. I've had this story, this exact book, for almost 20 years now. So I think I got this in college. And I used this book quite a bit when I was in college learning to be a teacher. I would use this for some of my projects. So I hope you guys enjoy the story as much as I have enjoyed it. Ruby the Copycat. I'm going to turn the camera so you can see a little better. There you go. All right. Monday was Ruby's first day in Miss Hart's class. Class, this is Ruby, announced Miss Hart. Ruby, you may use the empty desk behind Angela. Angela is the girl with the pretty red bow in her hair. Angela smiled at Ruby. Ruby smiled at Angela's bow and tiptoed to her seat. And there she is, being so brave on her first day. I'm sure that would be hard walking into a brand new classroom, not knowing which kiddos would be your new best friends. I hope everyone had a pleasant weekend, said Miss Hart. Does anyone have something special to share? I was the flower girl at my sister's wedding, said Angela. Well, that's exciting, said Miss Hart. Ruby raised her hand halfway. I was the flower girl at my sister's wedding, too. Why, what a coincidence, said Miss Hart. Angela turned and smiled at Ruby. Ruby smiled at the top of Angela's head. Class, please take out your reading books, said Miss Hart. Aw, look at there. It's like she's already found a friend. At lunchtime, Ruby hopped all the way home on one foot. Isn't that cool? Some parts of the world, the kids get to go home at lunchtime. They eat lunch at home and they come back for afternoon learning. When Ruby came back to school, she was wearing a red bow in her hair. She slipped into her seat behind Angela. I like your bow, said Angela. I like yours too, whispered Ruby. Class, please take out your math books. There they are, with matching red bows. On Tuesday morning, Angela wore a sweater with daisies on it. And at lunchtime, Ruby hopped home sideways. Look at her go. When Ruby came back to school after lunch, she was wearing a sweater with daisies on it. I like your sweater, whispered Angela. I like yours too, whispered Ruby. Matching bows, matching sweaters. On Wednesday, Angela wore a hand-painted t-shirt with matching sneakers. After lunch, Ruby hopped back to school wearing a hand-painted t-shirt with matching sneakers. Why are you sitting like that? Whispered Angela. Wet paint, whispered Ruby. And on Thursday morning, during sharing time, Angela modeled the flower girl dress that she wore at her sister's wedding. Ruby modeled her flower girl dress too, right after lunch. Angela didn't whisper anything. Oh dear. can tell by their faces they're feeling frustrated. Ruby might even look a little bit sad. By coincidence, on Friday morning, both girls wore a red and lavender striped dress. And at lunchtime, Angela raced home. When Angela came back to school, she was wearing black. On Friday afternoon, Miss Hart asked everyone to write a short poem. Who would like to read first? Asked Miss Hart. Angela raised her hand. She stood by her desk and she read, I had a cat I could not see because it stayed in back of me. It was a very loyal pet. It's sad we really never met. Wow, that was really good, said Miss Hart. Now, who would like to read next? Ruby? Ruby stood and recited slowly. I had a nice pet who I really never met because she always stayed behind me. And I'm sure it was a cat too. Ruby smiled at the back of Angela's head. Someone whispered something and Ruby sat down. What a coincidence, murmured Miss Hart. Oh dear. Aw. I think people are starting to get pretty frustrated. Angela scribbled something on a piece of paper and passed it to Ruby. The note said, You copied me. I'm telling Miss Hart, and P.S. I hate your hair that way. Ruby buried her chin into the collar of her blouse. A big tear rolled down her nose, and it plopped onto the note. When the bell rang, Miss Hart sent everybody home, except Ruby. Angela's note really made Ruby sad. When Miss Hart closed the door of the schoolroom, she sat on the edge of Ruby's desk. Ruby dear, she said gently, you don't need to copy everything Angela does. You can be anything you want to be. But be Ruby first. I like Ruby. Mrs. Hart smiled at Ruby. Ruby smiled at Mrs. Hart's beautiful, polished fingernails. Have a nice weekend, said Mrs. Hart. Have a nice weekend, said Ruby. Uh-oh. We know that face. On Monday morning, when Mrs. Hart said, I hope you had a pleasant weekend. I sure did. I went to the opera. Miss Hart looked around the room. Does anyone have something special to share? Ruby waved her hand. Glued to every finger was a pink plastic fingernail. I went to the opera too, said Ruby. She did not, whispered Angela. Mrs. Hart folded her hands and she looked very serious. Ruby dear, she said, did you do anything else this weekend? No. Ruby peeled off a fingernail. Well, I hopped. The class giggled. Ruby's ears turned red. But I did. I hopped around the picnic table 10 times. Ruby looked around the room. Watch. Ruby sprang from her desk. She hopped forward. She hopped backwards. She hopped sideways with both eyes shut. Aw, look at her go. She looks so happy. The class cheered and clapped their hands to the beat of Ruby's feet. Ruby was the best hopper they'd ever seen. Mrs. Hart turned on the music and said, "Follow the leader. Do the Ruby hop." So Ruby led the class around the room while everyone copied her. Look how happy she looks there with all of her friends, finally doing the thing that she loves the most and being herself. And at lunchtime, Ruby and Angela hopped home for lunch. Oh, look at that. Once Ruby was able to just be herself, Angela was excited to be with her again. I love this story. I think it's a great reminder that everybody is different and everyone has different talents and interests, and this book reminds me that it's important to be yourself and you don't need to try to be like anybody else, because just like Mrs. Hart says, you can be anything you want to be, but be you first. So I really like this book, and I hope you liked it too. I hope you guys are having fun at home, and I hope you're using this extra time to really focus on the things you're really good at. Some of you are amazing artists, and I bet you're working on making some awesome pictures to decorate your home, and maybe you can put it in the mailbox and send it to your grandma. And some of you are really good readers, and I bet you're spending this time enjoying extra books, and maybe you're reading to your little brothers and sisters. Some of you are awesome at math, and some of you are scientists, always coming up with new ideas and exploring things. So I hope that whatever you love to do, you're spending this extra time doing it. And I miss you guys, and thank you again for all the videos you're sending me and all of the pictures. I love them. So have a great week, and I'll try to send you another video soon.